The moment this story resurfaced, it sent a quiet chill across the internet. What many believed was a closed chapter, a tragic yet settled loss, has now reopened in a way few were prepared for. At first, it was just another familiar headline, a talented public figure gone too soon, a passing attributed to exhaustion, misfortune, or fate. But as fragments of suppressed truth began to surface, the narrative shifted, slowly at first, then all at once. Whispers turned into evidence, questions turned into accusations, and a story once wrapped in sympathy has transformed into one of the most unsettling reckonings the public has seen in years. This is no longer a tale of chance or bad luck. It is a story about trust, betrayal, and the fragile line between public image and private danger. Stay with us, because what you are about to hear is not simply an update. It is a re-examination of a truth that was nearly buried, and a reminder of how easily appearances can deceive us. For millions across Asia and beyond, Mang was known for warmth, sincerity, and an almost disarming gentleness. His performances carried an emotional honesty that resonated deeply with audiences, and his public presence suggested a life shaped by discipline, humility, and quiet resilience. When news of his death first broke, the response was immediate and heartfelt. Tributes poured in. Fans mourned collectively, accepting the official explanation that this was a tragic accident, a consequence of relentless pressure and physical exhaustion. It was painful, but it made sense, or so it seemed. What few realized at the time was that this version of events relied heavily on assumptions rather than certainty. Early reports were brief, vague, and notably cautious. Key details were absent, certain timelines felt incomplete, and while grief dulled suspicion, unanswered questions quietly lingered beneath the surface. In hindsight, those gaps would prove impossible to ignore. As investigators revisited the case, prompted by new testimony and mounting inconsistencies, a far darker picture began to emerge. What was once described as an accidental fall now appeared to be something far more deliberate. According to information later disclosed, authorities uncovered indications that Yu had been deliberately impaired before his death. His physical state at the time was not the result of fatigue alone, but of external interference that left him unable to protect himself. The alleged sequence of events is deeply troubling. Reports suggest that Yu was rendered disoriented through substances introduced into his drink, leaving him weak, confused, and vulnerable. In that condition, he was moved towards the balcony area where the fatal incident occurred. The scene that investigators initially believed showed signs of a sudden mishap was in fact carefully manipulated. Protective barriers were damaged, curtains were disturbed, glass fragments were scattered in a manner designed to simulate chaos rather than reveal intent. What makes these revelations particularly disturbing is the level of planning involved. This was not an impulsive act. It was not the result of a heated argument or an emotional outburst. It was a calculated sequence of actions, reportedly involving more than one individual, each step aimed at disguising responsibility and redirecting blame. The presence of multiple suspects has shifted public perception dramatically. A solitary mistake can be rationalized. Coordination cannot. Further forensic analysis added weight to these claims. Traces at the scene suggested resistance rather than misfortune. Footprints did not align with Yu's movements alone. Certain markings indicated that he was not acting of his own will in his final moments. Digital records, including voice notes and messages recovered from his phone, hinted at anxiety and a growing sense of unease in the days leading up to his death. These were not messages of a man surrendering to exhaustion, but of someone who felt increasingly unsafe. One particularly striking detail that captured public attention involved valuable personal items found in Yu's possession that did not belong to him. Investigators reportedly linked these items to one of the suspects, raising further questions about motive. Financial disputes soon entered the conversation. Behind the image of friendship and professional familiarity, there appeared to be unresolved tensions involving money, expectations, and perceived entitlement. In this context, admiration curdled into resentment, and proximity became opportunity. For Yu's family, the reopening of the case was both devastating and validating. They had lived with grief, but also with quiet doubt. His father, speaking publicly for the first time since the investigation intensified, rejected the portrayal of his son as fragile or defeated. He spoke not with anger, but with resolve, insisting that Yu was strong, capable, and full of plans for the future. His mother, often silent, became a symbol of restrained sorrow. Her composure spoke volumes, reminding the public that behind every headline lies a family forever altered. As details emerged, public reaction intensified. Social media platforms became spaces of collective disbelief and outrage. Many expressed remorse for having accepted the initial explanation too readily. Others demanded accountability, not only from those directly involved, but from the systems that failed to question early conclusions. Why were certain findings overlooked? Why did it take so long for crucial evidence to be acknowledged? These questions resonated far beyond a single case. Legal experts weighed in cautiously, noting that the alleged actions, if proven, could carry the most severe consequences under the law. The seriousness of the charges reflects not only the loss of life, but the alleged intent to deceive, manipulate evidence, and exploit trust. For the public, the prospect of maximum sentencing represents more than punishment. It represents recognition of truth. Yet beyond legal outcomes, this case has prompted a broader reflection. It challenges the assumption that success guarantees safety, that familiarity ensures loyalty, and that public narratives always align with private realities. It reminds us that vulnerability does not disappear with fame, and that the pressures surrounding visibility can sometimes obscure genuine danger. Across cities, fans have gathered quietly to remember Yu not as a victim, but as an artist whose work brought comfort and connection. Candles, handwritten messages, and moments of silence have transformed mourning into purpose. Many have pledged to follow the case closely, not out of curiosity, but out of respect. They seek assurance that his story will not be simplified, forgotten, or misrepresented again. As the trial approaches, emotions remain high. While legal proceedings must unfold with care and evidence, the court of public conscience has already reached its own conclusions about responsibility and loss. What happens next will not only determine accountability for those involved, but will also shape public faith in the idea that truth, however delayed, can still emerge. If you've stayed with us through this story, thank you for giving it the attention it deserves. Stories like this are not easy to hear, but they matter. They remind us to look beyond headlines, to question convenient explanations, and to hold space for those whose voices were nearly lost. If you value thoughtful updates, careful analysis, and stories that seek understanding rather than sensation, we invite you to subscribe to Update X 24 Hour. Your support allows us to continue bringing clarity, compassion, and perspective to complex stories from around the world. Thank you for watching, and please stay with us as we follow the next chapter of this case together.